What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Wave Files with Fred West. On today's episode, I have a friend of mine who, we've known each other for a long time. I guess in our early 20s, we kind of were moving and shaking, trying to figure out what we're trying to do. And we've reconnected on, in all places, a golf course. She's doing some amazing things right now. So something specific is called the Black Dollar Index, which is what we're going to talk about today. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to my friend, Kelle Rozell. What up, Kels?
Hey, how's it going?
How we doing?
Good. You know, trying to keep it together like everybody.
Yo, I want to say congratulations, and I'm super duper proud of this project. I should say project. This website that you've launched called the Black Dollar Index. I've scrolled through it. I've researched. I've done my homework on it. But I want to just spend some time and tell the people about this new project that you're spearheading, the Black Dollar Index. Can you tell the people what it is, please?
Yep. So the Black Dollar Index, it's really a protest. It's a response to what's been happening, to Black America for years. But I think the straw that broke the camel's back was George Floyd. It moved a lot of us into action, and myself and a group of people that I pulled together included. And it's a consumer advocacy platform. It's an accountability platform that really holds these corporate companies, these multinational, Fortune 1000 companies accountable for their commitments to Black America. And the goal is really to help push racial equity so we can, all have a more equitable country. And we do that through rating these corporations based on their commitments. So
would you, I hate to compare it to anything, but would you call it like Consumer Reports meets Forbes meets Wall Street, but for us, is that what it really is?
Yeah. So in all of our decks and when we're talking amongst ourselves, the way that we did position it as like a Better Business Bureau meets Consumer Reports.
Yeah. That's dope. Yeah. We hear about people thinking about doing this all the time, like, oh, I want to do this idea. What really pushed you? As you mentioned the George Floyd murder, that gave you the incentive to make it happen. But how long did it take you to get here? About 5, 6, 8 months? How long did it take you to get into this final product?
Yep. So we were a part of a brunch, like a Zoom brunch. Being in a pandemic, a group of people were just like, let's get on this brunch and kind of hold each other together during all of this. So that week that George Floyd was murdered, it sparked a lot of conversation. And I was all, being in the pandemic, I think we were all trying to figure out what's next. Were you in a position where you're just like, I just need this time to chill. I need to not do anything. Some people, are writing novels and writing books, and you got LLC Twitter, this is the time to start a business. So everybody, needed to do things their own way. I was actually already starting to look at ideas around personal finance management, and trying to combine that with my love for R&B, which is still a work in progress. So I was very much thinking about how do I tap into some of the things I'm really passionate about. So when George Floyd happened, we're talking about solutions, and there were a lot of people that were, hitting the front line and protesting. And there were other people who were really rallying around this idea of Black owned and operated. And I just think that my perspective, has kind of led me to this place where I work in corporate America. I'm biracial, I'm Black and white. I've seen a lot of different sides of things at times when people didn't know, who was sitting there. I've been a fly on the wall. And I've also experienced racism, in ways that I never imagined. So, to put that all together, my perspective was just kind of like, well, realistically, we can't just do everything Black owned and operated yet. I mean, that's the goal. Let's get there where we have our own airlines and we have our own, cell phone companies and, to that level where it can really scale. But for now, there's really no way to avoid these Fortune 500s. But there are companies that are doing things and have been doing things. So I started with American Express because I remember reading a story about Ken Chenault, who was the former CEO, a Black man. And I just went down a rabbit hole, like, well, what do the rest of these companies look like? Who's hiring Black people in leadership and decision-making, roles? And at the same time, my social network and my social circle, it was like parallel path of like misinformation being spread like wildfire. Right after George Floyd, there was a lot of companies saying this is our commitment to Black America. There were a lot of people like, like you did this. Remember when this happened? Or Wendy's, you gave to Trump, or, don't go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's because Home Depot did this. And I was just like, there's just so much disparate information and misinformation that as a consumer, you don't know what to do. So let me go ahead and try to put this together and see if we can tell one story about how these corporations are actually committed to Black America. And then, give that to the consumer and allow us to be informed and make more informed decisions. So, back to your question, it was easy for me because I was just putting it in a spreadsheet. This was something I could manage. This is something I could research. This was not building a website. I don't know how to code. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is you have these ideas that you're not self-contained. Your skill set will not allow you to do it. And I think we get tripped up and then we're just like, I can't do it. But for this, I was like, I'm just gonna put it all in a spreadsheet, all these data points that I can find. And that's really why it's here, because I felt like I took the most tangible first step to get to where we are now.
I agree. A lot of us have these amazing ideas, but we fall short or stop because we find a space that we're uncomfortable with or unknowing of, and just, it's all right. Someone else will do it. But that's why I'm so proud of you pushing forward and making this happen. I want to ask, how do you come to these numbers? How do you find that one company is 75 or let me actually back up, because I actually, I've been on the site, so I know how your grading works, but tell the people how you grade companies.
So our methodology is broken out into quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative is 80% of the score. So on the quantitative side, we're looking at, a company's workforce. How, what is their Black representation across the workforce? Board of directors, corporate leadership. Who reports to corporate leadership, and how many Black people do you hire in that space? We're also looking at whether their CEO is Black or not. That there's only a few. But we've, kind of thought about the way to prioritize that weighting within that 80% and feel that, it makes the most sense for our scoring. So, CEO is not going to be bulk of the score. And then on the qualitative side, let me go back. So quantitative side is measured against the 13.4% Black population in the US, according to the 2019 census. Right. So, we really feel that a company's workforce across all of those levels up to board of directors should reflect the population, and especially the populations that these companies serve. They sit in our neighborhoods and our communities. So we should have some sort of representation and equity within these companies. Now, on the qualitative side, that's 20% of the score. And we thought about it, we talked about it, and we really believe that if you can get the quantitative side right, you'll start to see that reflected in qualitative, which are really the decisions the company is making, how they give back to Black communities, how they treat their customers and their employees. Are there a ton of negative claims? Do they have a supplier diversity program? Meaning, are they intentionally writing contracts to Black entrepreneurs to provide services for that company outside of their employees? And do they have diversity and inclusion initiatives in place, which most do, but there are some that still don't. And there are some that, after George Floyd, we started to see a lot of hires in that area of people leading those efforts. So it's not an automatic given. But when you take all of that and put it together, you get the score. However, for companies that are not transparent about their workforce data, we gave them, undisclosed, which you'll see as a question mark, which, is a 0, because transparency is the key to all of this. Transparency is the first step to accountability. So we really need these companies to be transparent.
I'm with you. It's kind of like going to a restaurant and you see the grate pending on the door. You kind of don't
Right.
want to go inside.
Eat at your own risk. You know what you're getting into. But with that said, there's a lot that can be buried. There's a lot of information that can be hidden, and they can continue to say whatever they want to pander to the Black community by saying we're doing this, and we stand with Black America. We support you. We're very diverse. And then you dig in and you realize diversity means white women. Or, it just means not Black. Like, we're talking about companies like Google. If you can't find Black engineers, now it's time to create programs that do help facilitate that and create pathways.
I want to touch on something you mentioned, basically the lip service, so to speak. Like you'll see a Super Bowl commercial where certain companies are, we love the Black community, or on MLK Day, it'll be a bunch of commercials, but they're not doing anything. Or they'll hire someone in diversity, but won't give them any power. Do you feel, I guess, shining the light on these companies with your site now gives them more of a reason to move faster with their process of helping, so to speak?
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, the way that we approached it, I'll be very honest, like looking at a lot of the initiatives, trying to find what these companies have done that they've been so vocal. And some of them are like, oh, you do a Black History Month brunch every year for your employees. That's not really anything, to brag about if that's all you're doing. But I think, what's going to happen, what I hope will happen is now, we're on the outside of the club. We're with the consumers here. We're not doing the trade stuff. We're not, trying to have like conversations in the dark. So now you have these D&I roles that hopefully they can look at us as backup on the outside to say like, I'm trying to do what I need to do and push things through. But the company, if those conversations are quiet and being kept in the dark, then, they're the ones that are going to be held accountable for those goals. And ultimately, like, who's going to get fired, the next time something like this happens? It's going to be the same D&I person that's been pushing and pushing and pushing. But with us in the background saying, no, hold up, we see what you're doing and what you're not doing. I think it takes accountability off the people that are actually trying to do the work inside and kind of puts it back onto the decision makers. And it says like we've seen this for the last year, your numbers haven't changed, but you hired a D&I person. Why aren't you letting them do their job? So hopefully that's what will happen is we'll be backup for D&I. We'll be backup for, the change makers within the company that have had trouble getting their voice heard. I
got you. As your platform grows with popularity, and I guess, what's the word I want to use? You know how people will just straight up use Consumer Reports to go check something. Is that the goal of your platform for us? Like, we want to check to see what's going on. I would love for the Black Dollar Index to be a utility for us, a staple, something that for years to come becomes like a measurement guide and an information tool for Black consumers, Black America. This is just the starting point. We've barely scratched the surface. Like, there's so much deeper that we're going to go when it comes to the data and the research and intersectionality with gender and pay and really thinking about things like environmental racism and the impact that it's had. And, if a company's making $100 billion in revenue a year and they're committing $1 million, let's measure that. Let's actually measure that. But not only that, let's provide a platform that's now actionable. So, a place where you can go and you can read up on what the companies are doing and you can actually, make purchases and take actionable steps. So really like building out, a business model that is not just a like one and let me look and then I'm done, but like, let me look and now what can I do next to kind of support the action that we're being asked to take? when you started digging into some of these major corporations, and seeing the scale, you mentioned earlier about having like a brunch for Black people during Black History Month. Can you are you comfortable with giving me a couple of examples of some of the worst ratios you've seen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that one specifically, early on, that was Macy's. Macy's, the only thing I could really find on that
Really?
was Black History Month brunch. Um, and I think Trader Joe's was early on, like it was just very shocking. I think they're not a private company, or they're not a public company, but I still think that there's a duty to your customers. And when you're talking about cities like New York and LA, and you have Instagram accounts that are, committed to celebrating companies like Trader Joe's in the Black community, I think that they do have a duty to be more transparent about how they look at the Black consumer, because you can't find their board, you can't find anything about who works for the company, their leadership team, any of their workforce data. Up until I think December 31st, they hadn't talked about anything. On December 31st, they actually announced that they were launching a $500,000 scholarship to their Black crew members. They announced that they had hired a D&I executive to start working on their D&I initiatives. And they announced that they were creating a sampling table for Black suppliers. That doesn't read to me like it's a supplier diversity program. It doesn't read to me as it's guaranteed that any of these companies will become a part of their day-to-day shelves. But I think it's a start for them. So it'll be interesting to see what they look like a year from now. But I think the service industry, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It feels very antiquated. And I mean, a lot of it is just because they haven't had to. They haven't had to be transparent. And now I think, we're all looking for this accountability. So hopefully we'll see changes there.
No, I get it, because where we spend our money, we'd like to be treated fairly is the whole point of it.
And we're spending money, and we will go and we will shout out Cheesecake Factory and Popeyes. And, we will talk about all these companies across our social platforms, and we'll talk about it with our friends and our family. Did you taste this? They got this on their menu. It's so good. And cultural currency is real, and it drives people to these restaurants, to these establishments, and we're spending money. So, and then and another company that came up yesterday was Berkshire Hathaway. I didn't know all of what they owned, but I know that Warren Buffett is very, very rich. And yesterday I read an article that two shareholders approached him again with two proposals, one for environment and one for diversity. And the way that he looks at both of those things is environmentally. Out of his 351,000 employees, he believes that they'll just do the right thing. There's no policy, there's no formal anything in place. He's like, I'm rejecting this proposal because I believe that my employees will make the right decisions. On the diversity side, he's, saying that there's no way to standardize this data. But, for me, it's like, we absolutely can standardize it. If you're reporting to the EEOC certain things, it's a matter of, filling in those blanks where it's applicable to you. And, I don't think that his company should be exempt. But he doesn't view diversity in that way. So another proposal rejected. But Berkshire Hathaway owns Geico. They own Fruit of the Looms, Duracell. They own Dairy Queen. So they own a lot of companies that we go to on the day-to-day.
Day-to-day. Have you reached out to any of these companies in the process of you building this website to get insight from them specifically?
Yeah, so there were a couple that I spoke with before we launched because, the goal was to really partner with them. So there's one that's very big in the streaming space. There's one that's, pretty big in the sneaker athletic apparel space. And both of those companies and the people that I spoke with were brand new on their job for D&I. So yeah, like after George Floyd, again, even some of the most progressive companies or the companies that we feel have been the most tapped into Black culture were scrambling to hire people in these roles. So there's more work that needs to be done internally before we could, have partnership conversations per se. On the other side, there have been companies that have reached out like to say, we see what you scored us and we're not really sure how you got here. So we want to have a conversation. We want to tell you about all the amazing things that we're doing. But, the point is there's a lot of roadmaps being created. That does not mean that the work has been done. That's intention. The reality of it is that until we see the work done, it doesn't matter what your plan is. Like we need to see that you actually say you're going to do the work and then you do the work and then you're transparent about the work so we know that the work is done and not just you saying we said we were going to do the work, we did the work, okay, are we good now? Like that's just not, they wouldn't trust a partner in that capacity. So why should the consumer trust that?
No, I dig. You mentioned a lot of sub companies, well, companies owned by larger corporations. How are you breaking down these companies on your website so people can have a better understanding?
Yeah, it comes down to the parent company. That's how workforce data is reported. So that's what we're reporting on. If they start fragmenting it, then we'll start fragmenting it. But there are companies like Ben and Jerry's that are doing the right thing. They're a B Corp. But they fall within, a parent company that has a lot of other brands and, a bigger picture to account for. So, I think as consumers, like, again, make the most informed decision. And like, that's not to say you can never spend money with any of these companies ever again. But like, if you're going to pick a company, I would say, yeah, Ben and Jerry's might be one that you're willing to, step outside of that rating to say, they're doing good work. They speak out for us. We'll go here. Or this company brought in a new Black-owned product that sits on their shelves. I'm going to go in and I'm going to buy that Black-owned product from that company and, show the value of having Black suppliers, having more diverse products on your shelf. But it really does ladder up to the parent company. They're the ones that have the revenue. They're the ones, there's a CEO that's getting a humongous check from all of those companies being in their portfolio. So I think it's really about holding them accountable for as long as they're all connected.
I get it. Just from a sense of workability on your actual website, if I go into the search bar and I type in, I don't know, CBS, and will that come up, or will I have to type in its parent company for it to come up?
So that example, that will not come up because that's not in there yet. However, yes, we have everything tagged. So the parent company is the main profile. You can search by category. So if you want to look up restaurants, you can type in restaurants and get a list of restaurants. If you want to type in, I'm trying to think. If you type in Alphabet, you'll get Google. You'll get, if you type in Amazon, you'll get Whole Foods, you'll get Twitch, you could type in Whole Foods and it will take you to Amazon's profile. So everything is tagged, but the parent companies are the main profiles. We're actually starting to build it out even more. So the infographic for the most part has like subsidiaries on there, but the header, the profile bar at the top, we're starting to build more robust profiles. So you'll see revenue and employees and who the CEO is and subsidiaries there as well. This is beta. This is our MVP. This is the starting point of this work, barely scratching the surface. I do, want people to know we approach this from a marketing perspective. As we get more resources, we are completely building this out. It's data driven. It's very much data driven. But there's so much more data that needs to be added to this and measured, and there's so much nuance. So, this is the result of somebody should do, or we need this. So we did it. And again, this is just the starting point, and we hope that as we continue to build it out, it becomes even more helpful of a guide for Black consumers. I think that there are a lot of people that will continue to shop as long as if they don't have the information, they'll continue to go places. I think it's really just about drilling information into people's heads to start creating habits. You might not make the decision on day one, but by day 365 of hearing that this company is not for you, you might start to kind of like
deviate to the left. It's kind of like when it's all right. Let's take it to hip hop because that's our culture. Let's talk about that. It's kind of like when Hove reached out about the liquor and the company's like, oh, we don't like Black people drinking our we don't care for them. Okay, Hove told everybody don't drink their liquor no more. Buy my liquor. I made my own. Here you go. Yep. So that's kind of the same thing in essence, right? The whole Tommy Hilfiger thing that happened back in the day, or the Timberland situation back in the day. Those are just microcosms, right? But now with your website, it gives a wider view of everybody. So nobody can hide under the rug or under the couch anymore. Everybody's feet are to the fire, right?
Yeah, to that point, there are some other feet that I would not to say I want to put their feet to the fire. I do want to challenge. I want to challenge these celebrities that are, doing these deals. I know it's great. There's great checks and it's a great opportunity for an individual. But as we move, out of 2020 and into 2021, and we know the cultural climate, we see what continues to happen. I would, challenge celebrities to be more mindful about the endorsement deals that they do. Take a look at the companies that you're signing these deals with, whether it's, Travis Scott with McDonald's, Beyonce, Ivy Park, Jay with LVMH. Take a look at the companies internally. And then, you decide to do the deal, but bring demands, bring diversity, bring DEI demands, bring community demands, like how they need to give back. I think that because what's happening is the company is going to continuously bypass the internal work that needs to be done and continue to get the lowest hanging fruit by giving a big check and bringing in a celebrity to continue to bring in Black dollars without actually showing that they're committed to the Black community. So, I would love for these celebrities as they're doing these deals to just do their research and make demands as a part of your contract of them using your name and creating products that Black consumers are gonna support and buy.
Now, to be fair, is the research that you're finding, is that just straight up public information that you're coming across? Because
yeah.
to hold these artists accountable for peddling out our Black culture for $1 million or $2 million, whatever their situation, their deal is it fair to ask them to do that without the knowledge?
Well, I think there's me and there's a group of people, and we're trying to push transparency. These companies aren't asking us for that. So if they have an interest in working with any of these artists, I think that's an easy ask to say, one, we'd like you to be transparent about your workforce data. There are companies that are already doing it. So it's not like it's unheard of. And I think anybody doing business, you want to be as informed as possible with what you're dealing with. So these are questions that should be asked, because if it comes back around that any of these companies are doing something super dirty, you don't want to be in that position. But
right.
But I think it's absolutely okay for them to ask, what they're doing and write a couple of things in to that contract to say, if you're going to use my name, then you need to do this, that, and the third.
But I think with your site being so public, and I feel the growth that it's going to take on, it'll be a lot more easier for these artists to be, listen, I just went on this website and it says this about you.
If they care, I mean, if they care, but that they have to do that. Like, but yes, to that point, like all of the data that we're showing right now is public. So it might be buried very, very deeply into a corporate social responsibility report. And that's one reason why we want to do this, to pull that out. But yeah, hopefully it becomes that point where any celebrity references the Black Dollar Index before they do a deal like that and say, yeah, this is not good. How do we write this in the contract to make it better and guarantee
it, right? And not just put somebody in a position that they have no power to change anything. No, I get it. Well, that was fun. Kelle, Rozell of the Black Dollar Index, can you please give some people some information on where they can find the website, Instagram, all those exciting things?
Yep. blackdollarindex.com. That's the website. We're on social. So look up Black Dollar Index. Twitter was character issue. So it's INDX instead of INDEX. And LinkedIn, you can find us at the Black Dollar Initiative, which is kind of like the collective of people and the movement that we're pushing forward. The index is the product. So you can connect with us on LinkedIn under the Black Dollar Initiative.
Is an app in the future?
An app is absolutely in the future. We want to build out an enterprise site, build an app, and make this as accessible as possible to really scale it up. Also, subscribe to the newsletter. That's a big thing. Please subscribe.
Very, very, very important. We got to keep everybody responsible for what we're doing in these streets, ladies and gentlemen. This is my good friend Kelle. I appreciate your time. Kels, we out.
Thanks for having me.